CNBC TV 18, celebrating 15 years of leadership.
हम अभी ईज करेंगे, इसके बाद मेरे ख्याल में हम रेट को बढ़ाएंगे नहीं, 3-4 साल बाद शायद बढ़ाना पड़ेगा.
Our top story tonight, India has entered a phase of loose monetary policy. Expect no rate hikes for 3 to 4 years, says Raghuram Rajan in an exclusive interview to Network 18. On inflation, Rajan says that India is in the outskirts of the woods, but not out of the woods just yet. And Cognizant remains in hot pursuit of TCS. Posts a stellar set of numbers in 2014, becomes the second Indian IT company to join the $10 billion revenue club.
Right now, the labour policy in Maharashtra is neither labour friendly nor industry friendly. It is just a time-taking exercise.
And Maharashtra Chief Minister plans a massive overhaul of labour laws in the states, wants to offer a decent exit route to investors and promises to cut the red tape. Says infrastructure projects worth 1 lakh crore rupees have been cleared. That's another exclusive. And Bharti Airtel disappoints in the third quarter. Africa business drags revenues, profits rise by just 4% as volume growth remains tepid. Bank stocks remain under pressure as markets slip for the fourth straight session. Sensex shares over 100 points and tumbles well below the 29,000 mark. The race for a bank license hots up. RBI releases a list of 72 applicants for a small bank and 41 applicants for a payment bank. Tech Mahindra, NSE, NSDL, Videocon, D2H and Sun Pharma's Dilip Sanghvi are the surprise entrants to the payment bank race. 3 former tech honchos, V. Balakrishnan, Mohandas Pai and Suresh Senapati are in the queue for a small bank. From last to second last, India rises just 1 level in the International Intellectual Property Index released by the US Chamber of Commerce. India is ranked 29th among 30 countries, trailing even the likes of Vietnam, Nigeria, China, Peru, Mexico, among others. The battle for Delhi enters the final lap. Prime Minister apologizes to people from the northeast for the immigrant faux pas. Kiran Bedi gets emotional in the campaign trail. Kejriwal dares Bedi to call him corrupt. And Rahul Gandhi finally breaks his silence and hit back at Jayanti Natarajan's allegations.
गवर्नमेंट पे क्या काबू रखना है या निगरानी रखना है, वो हम करने की कोशिश नहीं कर रहे हैं. हम ये बस देखना चाहते हैं कि इस फिस्कल डेफिसिट का असर इन्फ्लेशन पे कैसा होगा, कब होगा.
What is the envisaged investment and what is the timeline that you're looking at?
The immediate projects which I have in my hand, the investment is around 1 lakh crore. But it can be more because more and more projects are coming.
Well, there's certainly a level of optimism that has crept into India, quite different from when I was here a year and a half ago. It's still difficult, there's no doubt about it, but there is increasing hope that the Indian economy.
Well, it is a day of big exclusives right here on CNBC TV 18, from the Reserve Bank Governor to the Chief Minister of Maharashtra to Unilever's Paul Pullman and Intel Corporation's President Rene James. All of that and more coming up for you on this edition of India Business Hour. Good evening. Thanks very much for joining us. I'm here at the Taj Palace at the TERI Sustainability Development Summit, and fireworks are here between Paul Pullman and Niti Aayog member Bibek Debroy on the road ahead as far as protecting the environment and development needs of India and how the two can be aligned. But more on that coming up for you in just a bit. First up, Kritika, let's take a look at what Dalal Street did today.
Shireen, no fireworks for Dalal Street. It was a very volatile session. Markets slipped for the fourth straight day as volatility continues to rule the roost. So we saw Sensex slipping well below that 29,000 mark, losing over 100 points in trade. The Nifty lost over 30 points today as it continued to tumble near that 8,700 level. Banks were the major culprits once again. The Bank Nifty lost 500 points yesterday, and today it lost another 200 points. But Shireen, it's not about the markets, is it? Raghuram Rajan is a big news newsmaker tonight?
Oh, absolutely. Raghuram Rajan is the big newsmaker, and he's so big that we actually had to go back and listen to the tape twice because we weren't sure that we had heard the governor right. And here's why. Because in a conversation with CNBC Awaaz, our sister channel, the governor exclusively suggesting that he is unlikely, or the Reserve Bank is unlikely to cut rates over the next 3 to 4 years. So we are in the midst of a loose or an accommodative monetary policy is what the governor seems to suggest. Of course, all of that depends on the trajectory for inflation. If it continues on the downward trajectory as we are currently seeing it, then he believes we will not be, India won't need to hike rates in the next 3 to 4 years. And he also believes that a cut in interest rates is not the only way to try and fix the problems that the economy sees. But let's listen in to the RBI governor in an exclusive conversation with CNBC Awaaz.
ब्याज दर एक मैजिक वॉन्ड नहीं है जो हम ऐसे फैलाएंगे और सब कुछ ठीक हो जाएगा, क्योंकि इकोनॉमी में काफ़ी चीज़ें करने हैं। ये जो स्टॉल्ड प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं, जो प्रोजेक्ट्स रुक गए हैं, उनके लिए गवर्नमेंट को काफ़ी करना है।
लेकिन वो एक तरह से सरकार भी आप पर ही दायित्व डालते रहती है कि हाँ, हमें उम्मीद है कि आरबीआई ब्याज दर घटाएंगे।
नहीं, सबको एक साथ काम करना है और सरकार भी ये कहती है कि सबको एक साथ काम करना है। मेरे ख्याल में हम अभी एक मौद्रिक सहजता के वातावरण में आ गए, तो मोर मॉनेटरी ईजिंग ये आने वाला है। लेकिन कब और कितना, वो डेटा पे डिपेंड करता है। अगर इन्फ्लेशन कम होती जा रही है तो हम और कर सकते हैं। अगर बढ़ती है क्योंकि तेल का दाम बढ़ जाता है अचानक, तो हमें देखना पड़ेगा। तो इसलिए हमने कहा है कि हम अभी ईज करेंगे, इसके बाद मेरे ख्याल में हम रेट को बढ़ाएंगे नहीं। 3-4 साल बाद शायद बढ़ाना पड़ेगा, लेकिन आने वाले महीनों में हम काटते रहेंगे। लेकिन कितना काट सकते हैं और कब काट सकते हैं, वो डेटा पे डिपेंड करती है।
अब आपका एक मैं स्टेटमेंट पढ़ रही थी और आप मुझे बताइए कि अगर इसे मैं गलत समझ रही हूँ। उसमें जो मुझे समझ में आया, आपने कहा कि जिस तरह की एक लैग या साइकिल चलती है भारतीय मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी में, उसके हिसाब से एक रेट कट के बाद 3/4 क्वार्टर लगते हैं। क्या हम इससे समझे कि कम से कम 3/4 क्वार्टर तक या अगले 3 क्वार्टर तक आप पहले देखेंगे कि किस तरह का असर है और फिर आप रेट कट करेंगे?
नहीं, ऐसी बात नहीं है। वैसे जब हम एनालिसिस करते हैं तब दिखता है कि जब हम रेट काटते हैं उसका असर ग्रोथ पे 3-4 क्वार्टर के बाद होता है, लेकिन इमीडिएट असर तो होता है सेंटिमेंट पे। जैसे कि हम काटते हैं तो आप सब चिल्लाने लगते हैं कि आरबीआई ने काटा है, फिर स्टॉक मार्केट बढ़ती है, तो उस सेंटिमेंट से भी काफी असर पड़ सकता है। तो इसलिए हम ये नहीं सोच रहे हैं कि हम वेट करेंगे, देखेंगे, तब काटेंगे, क्योंकि अगर हमें एक्टिविटी चाहिए थोड़ी देर में, हमें अभी काटना है, क्योंकि एक्टिविटी थोड़ी देर में ही आएगी। लेकिन वो रेट डिसीजन में काफी चीजें आ जाती हैं। लेकिन जैसे कि अभी सीपीआई का जो नंबर है, वो कैलकुलेशन में बदलाव आने वाला है। वो रिफॉर्म कर रहे हैं वो प्रोसेस को। दूसरा ये है कि ग्रोथ नंबर जो अभी आई है, वो हम समझने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि हाँ, तो उसमें भी वो फरवरी 9 को इस साल की ग्रोथ के प्रोजेक्शंस आने वाले हैं, तो वो भी हमें देखना है। फिर एक बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण बजट आने वाली है। इसमें गवर्नमेंट क्या करेगी, क्या दिशा दिखाएगी, कितना फिस्कल कंसोलिडेशन होगा, कितना एक्सपेंडिचर को सब्सिडी से इन्वेस्टमेंट तक ले आएगी, वो सब हमें देखना पड़ेगा। ये सब इनपुट्स हैं महंगाई में, तो उसके बाद हम देख सकते हैं कि कितना कर सकते हैं। अगर डेटा सरप्राइज करती है तो हम और कर सकते हैं, अगर डेटा डिसअपॉइंट करती है तो हम कम कर सकते हैं।
Well, that's the RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan talking about the trajectory as far as inflation and rate cuts or rate hikes are concerned, saying that if all things remain the same, which means inflation continues to trend downwards, and he doesn't see the possibility of being able to hike rates over the next 3 to 4 years, but who knows. Let's talk about the big story now coming in from the corporate space, and we have a new entrant into the $10 billion club, and I'm talking about $10 billion in revenues. It's Cognizant. The company has announced its numbers today. It's beaten Street estimates. Kritika, you've been tracking the numbers now. A stellar quarter there from Cognizant. Take us through the details.
You know, it seems like I keep repeating this, Shireen. Every quarter, Cognizant has yet again beaten its own guidance. So last quarter, they'd actually revised their guidance downwards, expecting a 14.1 to 14.5% calendar year 2014 revenue growth. This time around, the total revenue growth has come in at 16.1%, higher than all its peers. Now for the full year, and that's the very important point coming in from Cognizant, for the full year of calendar year 2015, they expect a revenue growth of 19%. So they're expecting the calendar year 2015 revenues to come in at $12.2 billion. For the next quarter, though, they're expecting about 2 to 3% of a growth. So they're expecting revenues to come in at $2.88 billion. Margins have been steady, but next time around, they are actually expecting a significant uptick. They typically stay within the 19 to 21% range. Currently, it's at roughly around 19%, and possibly we could see an uptick next quarter. Let's in fact hear out what the Executive Vice Chairman of the company, R. Chandrasekharan, had to say to us just a short while ago on the growth outlook.
If you take the currency headwind out, we grew by about 4.2%, organically. And if you take the acquisition into account, we grew by about 6.2%, which is one of the best, Q4 that we have had in the recent past. So, so we are very happy, not at all cautious. And we are happier that the momentum is with the business going into 2015. We have a very healthy pipeline, and we see the dual mandate challenges that the customers have really creates a lot of opportunities for our services portfolio.
Another important set of earnings today, but not a very good one. Bharti Airtel reported a tepid set of third quarter numbers. Consolidated revenue was up only 1.6%, largely dragged down due to the Africa business. Profit growth stood at 3.6%, but margins came in a tad bit lower than the previous quarter. The Indian wireless business managed to meet expectations, but volume growth was subdued at just 1.36% and well below Idea Cellular's 5.1%. Like we said earlier, the Africa business was a big drag. Rupee revenue down 1%. Dollar revenue down over 3%, and margins falling to just under 22% versus 23.65% clocked in the previous quarter. So one great set of earnings, Shireen, but one a very disappointing one. Bharti Airtel stock will of course be in focus tomorrow.
Well, that is right, but let's get done with earnings now and talk about another CNBC TV 18 exclusive tonight. We're talking about our interview with the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Devendra Fadnavis. He's outlined his plan for Mumbai Next, which is positioning Mumbai as an international financial and entertainment hub. There's a big do plan on the 6th, and of course we will be there getting you all the action. But in our interview, the Chief Minister very clearly articulating his plan for Mumbai Next, which includes a big urban infrastructure mission, which includes smart cities, which includes commercial hubs like the Bandra Kurla complex. He wants to build about 10 of the BKCs in the MMR region. Of course, also talking about reforming labor laws, as the labor laws currently in the state of Maharashtra are not industry friendly, they're obsolete. He also wants to put an exit policy in place on the labor front, and that announcement, he says, will be expected shortly. There's also several things on the works as far as real estate are concerned. So let's listen into the Maharashtra Chief Minister on what he has planned.
We have already sanctioned 72 kilometers metro network. We have got all the clearances, nearly all the clearances for Trans-Harbour Link, which would link Mumbai to New Mumbai. We are at the verge of getting all the clearances for the coastal road, which is very vital for the Mumbai infrastructure. Because once the coastal road is there, Mumbai can be decongested. We have already got clearance of New Mumbai Airport, and the bid is also submitted. So the infrastructure is put on fast track. So far as the entertainment industry is concerned, we want to market Mumbai as a Bollywood city, because Bollywood has its presence all over the globe. and Bollywood is such a ambassador which creates a real brand.
As far as land acquisition is concerned, land is one of the biggest problems when it comes to infrastructure development in Mumbai and of course in several other cities in this country.
Acquiring land in a city like Mumbai is very easy. In any city, for that matter, is quite easy. It's only when you look at the highway projects and when you need a greenfield land, then the land acquisition process is, a bit heavy. But for Mumbai, we can do it, and now we are coming up with a new TDR policy wherein all the reservations, it would incentivize people so that they would come forward and they would give their land on their own, because the incentive which we are giving in our new TDR policy is high, and people will feel that giving their reserved land is more beneficial for them than holding it back.
In phase 1, as far as the urban infrastructure mission is concerned, what is the envisaged investment and what is the timeline that you're looking at?
The immediate projects which I have in my hand, the investment is around 1 lakh crore. But it can be more, because more and more projects are coming. And there are different phases. So there are certain projects which we will complete in 3 years, some in 5 years, some in 6 years. But mostly I think that in 5 years' time, we will be able to deliver most of the infrastructure projects.
You've lost investment to neighboring states like Gujarat. Ford, Maruti, they've gone to Gujarat as opposed to coming to Maharashtra. How are you going to bring these investors back to Maharashtra, sir?
Everyone is ready to come or is eager to come to Maharashtra. And why? Because we have created an atmosphere which is investment friendly. We are assuring people that there would not be any red tapeism. We are bringing down the number of permissions from 76 to 25%. We are doing away with all the permissions which are not required, which are age old and which are obsolete.
What more can we expect in terms of policy reforms at the state government's level, sir?
We also want to go forward with the labor reforms, because right now the labor policy in Maharashtra is neither labor friendly nor industry friendly. It is just a time-taking exercise. So we want a policy wherein there is more flexibility for the labor, there is more employability for the labor. At the same time, there is a good exit policy for the industries which they require. So series of reforms we have envisaged, and in a short time we'll carry them out.
Well, the other big story today, the RBI has released the names of payment banks and small bank applicants. There were 72 applicants for the small finance banks and about 41 applicants for payment banks. For more on who those applicants are, we are joined by our banking correspondents Ritu Singh and Manasvi Gilani. Hi ladies, Ritu, coming to you first. While the small bank list has no surprises, the payment bank list has a few names that are fairly surprising. We saw Videocon, we saw Techim. We had no idea whatsoever when they were actually applying.
Indeed, Kritika. Dilip Shangvi is also another big surprise in that list, as well as NSDL. In all, of course, on the payments bank front, there were 41 applicants, and these included names from all across the spectrum. You saw names of Reliance, Dilip Shangvi, Kishore Biyani, of course, which was already known. There was AB Nuvo, Airtel, Tech Mahindra, which was a surprise in the list, including Videocon, D2H. India Post also, again, was a surprise, and Vodafone MPs is one of the bigger names. So all in all, a lot of big names that have come up. But of course, given that the whole basis of the payments bank is based on the fact that you need to have a vast customer base and reach, the telecos and the retail players are the likely ones that will, of course, get the benefit. The final list will, of course, be released by the RBI, so we have to wait and watch out for that.
All right, so Ritu had the payment bank list for us. Manasvi, you are sitting with the small bank list. Some fairly surprising independent names there. What do you have?
That's right. To start with the surprising independent names that you were mentioning about right now, we have, K. Jeremy Vargas. He's in fact the former Union Bank chairman. Apart from him, we have the tech team. In fact, V. Balakrishnan, the ex-CFO of Infosys. Then we have Mohan Das Pai. He's the ex-HR head of Infosys. And then Suresh Tinapati, the former Wipro CFO. These were the individual categories that surprised us. But in fact, the other names, which are of the microfinance companies and NBFCs, were Jana Lakshmi Financial Services. In fact, Radhakrishnan, who heads Jana Lakshmi, is an ex-City banker, and industry experts say that he's in fact a tough competitor to the rest of them. Others include Repco Microfinance, Diwan Housing, IIFL Holdings, Chola Mandalam Capital Trust, SKS Microfinance, and in fact, Via FinServ. And Via FinServ himself is in fact the ex-former of SKS is going to give competition. So Vikram Aghula, who now heads VIF himself and was with SKS, are also going to be competing with each other. So these are the names as far as small banks go. In fact, RBI did also release the names of the committee and the panels that are going to be looking at small banks and evaluating, and will be the Usha Thorat committee. And as far as payment banks go, Nachiket More committee is the one that's going to be finalizing the names.
All right, Manasvi and Ritu, thanks very much for joining us. And one of those surprising applicants that Manasvi was just telling us about joins us now live here on India Business Hour. V. Balakrishnan, the former CFO of Infosys. Bala, appreciate you joining us. You know, we've got you, we've got Mohandas Pai, and we've got Suresh Senapati. So 3 former CFOs of 2 technology companies in the line there for an RBI license. Why would you want to do this?
No, I think the banking sector is opening up in India now. The financial inclusion is very low in the country. The ecosystem is building up very well. We have the payments bank coming in. India Post is there. The mobile payments are becoming more popular. So we thought all the 3 of us should come together and form a pure technology bank, which will be like a virtual bank which is prevalent in the Western markets. So we want to use technology more and create a virtual bank kind of a bank in India, which will benefit both the consumers, and it will help us to scale up faster and create a world-class bank. That is the idea.
Okay, so you're saying that you want to leverage the power of technology, and which is your background, to create a virtual bank. But how would this compare or compete with the likes of Dhanalakshmi, who have expertise and experience in this business?
No, we collectively have a lot of experience in the financial world, and we will build a good management team to run the bank. Ultimately, the idea is to create a differentiate in the marketplace, to use more technology and create a technology-driven bank in the country. I think the time has come for India to have that kind of a bank.
Mr. Balakrishnan, this is Ritu from CNBC TV 18. Just wanted to add another question. As far as the capital requirement is concerned, 100 crores is the minimum capital requirement. Do you have any ideas in place as to how you're raising this money?
No, we have given the details to RBI. I think collectively, all the 3 of us are bringing in 50 crores. And balance 50 crores, one of the large investors coming in. So we have plans for 100 crores.
Right. Bala, you know, if you do get this license, what is going to be the strategy? Of course, you've told us about how technology is going to be the foundation and the key differentiator. But in terms of, you know, getting the operations off the ground, what is it that we're actually looking at? Can you share some details with us about your sales pitch to the Reserve Bank?
I think, initially we want to start the operation focusing on Karnataka, and we have aggressive growth plans. Idea is to build a world-class bank which will finally aspire to be a universal bank in the country. So the plans are given in the RBI application. Hopefully we'll get the license.
Well, we wish you the very best of luck, and we hope that we do see a virtual bank for this country very soon. But Bala, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18 and taking us through the broad plans that you have to get into the banking business. That's the former Chief Financial Officer of Infosys, who's tied up with the former Chief Financial Officer of Infosys and the former Chief Financial Officer of Wipro to create a virtual bank. But Kritika, let's now talk about another very important story, and this one is controversial. We're talking about India's IT rankings. This is a ranking that's been put out by the US Chamber of Commerce. And guess what? There's 30 countries on that ranking, and Ritu Parnabhuyan joins us now to tell us where India stands. Ritu.
Well, India's position is 29th, better than 2014 by just 1 notch, and that is because the GIPC index takes into account 6 critical factors, which includes patents, copyrights, trademarks, trade secrets enforcement, and international treaties. And India's overall score is 7.23 out of a total of 30. And this puts us behind, believe it or not, China, Nigeria, Mexico, Vietnam, and several other countries. Of course, this list is topped by the United States. And the GIPC in its report has said that India's patentability norms are not at par with international practices. But remember that we are a signatory to the TRIPS agreement, and India's patents regime has never been challenged at the WTO after we became a signatory to TRIPS. In addition, the report says that we have a history of using compulsory licenses for commercial gains. But remember that we have just issued one compulsory license till now, and that too through a quasi-judicial process, and the Supreme Court has upheld that particular quasi-judicial process recently. In addition to that, the report also talks about challenging IPR-related enforcement in India. With that, it's back to you.
Well, this is a controversial one, Ritu. Thanks very much. Joining us now to talk about this is Mia Pugash, the author of the Intellectual Property Debate and the Managing Director and founder of Pugash Concilium. Thanks very much for joining us on CNBC TV 18. You know, a lot of questions are being asked about your index, and on the patentability index, you've given India a score of 1 out of 7. Yet data shows that between 2005 and 2014, over 82% patents were granted to foreign companies. What justifies this poor ranking for India?
Thank you very much, and good evening, Ms. Ban. I think that on the patentability of the index, we've actually looked at 7 categories. So, and overall, the index looks at about 30 categories altogether. And we looked at overall issues concerning the existing protection mechanisms, patent terms extension mechanisms, the ability to obtain a patenting process through the 3 standards that are acceptable internationally, and not only through what is called a 4th hurdle, as well as issues concerning compulsory licensing and protection of computer-implemented inventions. When applying these categories across the board to all the 30 countries measured, we found that India is ranked quite low overall. So it's not really a matter of how much patents have been granted, which is of course important, but it's really about how many other patents have not been granted and not been extended and not been protected in terms, for example, of clinical trials, disclosures, and so on.
Okay, I'll come to clinical trials and compulsory licensing in just a bit, but let's talk about India's patent laws. India's patent laws, as per the Indian government, are TRIPS compliant. They have stood muster at the WTO. They haven't been challenged at the WTO. So why do you say that India's patent laws are worse than Peru or China or even Nigeria?
Well, I think that it's important to take note of one thing. The GIPC index is not about whether a country is compliant with the WTO or not. That's for the WTO and the countries to assess. The GIPC index essentially tries to provide right holders with innovators, copyright holders, trademark owners, ICT producers, with an empirical assessment of how supportive and protective the intellectual property environment in different countries is. To this extent, some of the elements that are being measured in the index are not always part of the WTO TRIPS agreement. For example, the issue of regulatory data protection. When visiting, for example, India in 2007 and discussing the issue of regulatory data protection with a wide range of government officials from the Indian government at the time, there was at the time a discussion in a committee in India, for example, that wanted to examine the application of regulatory data protection in India. I think it was by Dr. Reddy, the committee. The committee concluded that over time there is merit in introducing regulatory data protection per Article 39.3 in India. Now, 8 years later, nothing has happened. So when we look at things over time, and these changes have not yet took place.
Okay, a quick question there on the issue of compulsory license, because that is something that you talked about. We've granted one compulsory license, and that has gone through a process of a quasi-judicial process, and then it's been upheld by the highest court of this country, the Supreme Court of India. Even in countries like the US, and I'm looking at the data, between 2007 and 2011, 283 cases were identified in US federal district courts where patent validity was determined. Of these, only 39 cases where the patent was held valid and enforceable. In 253 cases, the patent was held to be invalid. So why the sense or the perception is India being victimized on this front?
I think that there is a bit of a confusion between compulsory licensing, patent validation, and the process of patenting. We're essentially talking about three different things. The index measures the legislation which allows for compulsory licensing without a fair, judicial, and unprejudiced process. For example, if compulsory license is granted in essence for commercial negotiations, that is not something that is deemed valid by the index. Furthermore, if, for example, a patent on a pharmaceutical product, such as, for example, Glivec, is being upheld in all other countries and not in India, that's also part of a legislative part in India, which is called Article 3D, which is not in existence or interference in other countries. Lastly, the fact that patents themselves are being validated or invalidated, that's fine in itself. That's for the courts to decide, but based on legislative framework. And I think that what we are looking in India is that the legislative framework itself is too permissive with regards to compulsory license, regardless of the number of licenses that are being used.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks very much for joining us and taking us through why India finds itself with such a poor rank on the IPR index. This one is going to raise some eyebrows. Appreciate your time here on India Business Hour. With that, it's time for us to wrap up this edition of the show. Thanks very much for watching.